Now, Allie, your books sometimes get into the nitty gritty, and there's been a few times I've read it and went, whoa, you know. Talk a little bit about what's made its way into your stories from maybe real life or in your mind, things that you want to talk about that are deep and possibly disturbing.
I think they're all sort of disturbing. My partner thinks I need a lot of therapy, but at least I put it on the page, not in real life. No, I think the first one that I finished one of the Devil books while I was in the hospital and my mom was passing away.
Mhm.
So I think it had kind of affected and she was sick and my father was rather elderly when he passed away. But my brother died very suddenly, very unexpectedly. I mean, I was talking to him a couple of hours before he passed away, and it just came as like a rush. And it was a lot of undealt with emotions, I guess. So the inheritance was something that came to me as I was planning a funeral that I'd never thought I'd have to plan. And I was kind of, it wasn't funny, but in the part of the book where the protagonist just loses her brother, who they're very very close, and, and we were going through the editing process, and the girl was like, well, this doesn't ring true. And it's like, believe you me, if you've read that part of the inheritance, it's exactly what happened. So it's one thing, he had a heart attack and they brought him back and they shouldn't have. So then you have to make the decision of having to, turn those machines off. So it was very emotional, and I wrote it down, and it really did kind of help. And I thought, wherever he is, he probably is laughing. He is enjoying the story. That was the only part that was true.
Okay.
The
There's
rest
a
of
lot
it,
of stuff in there you wonder
yeah,
about, right?
exactly.
But I'm sorry about your brother's loss.
Thank you.
Our next author is Jen Alexander. Jen Alexander was born and raised in Edmonton, Canada. She graduated in 2017 with an MS in counseling from the University of North Texas. And she's since returned to Canada, where she's trying to reacclimatize to the frozen north. We were just talking about that before we got on here, about all the snow that happens up there. Jen is a 2018 graduate of the Golden Crown Literary Society's Writing Academy, for which she was the year's recipient of the Sandra Moran Scholarship. She lives with her dog, Delia, and her cat, Molly, both of whom tried their best to distract her while she tries to write. And when she's not writing, Jen spends her time playing the drums, which is pretty cool, skiing, or looking for adventure. Her debut romance novel is A Song of the Sea, and she recently released her second novel, Home. Jen, in your book, Song of the Sea, you deal with a very, very tough subject of a mother losing her infant. And I think that that's probably one of the most difficult things to write about. And what made you bring that into your story and go with that?
So I really struggled with that book for a really long time because I had these characters that I wanted to write about. And I had actually written two full drafts of a story before figuring out what the main conflict was. And I kept reading everything I'd written and seeing themes of grief and healing. And so when I sat down and really asked myself what the book was going to be about, that was the plot that came to me. And it wasn't one that I initially wanted to write. I kind of pushed back against writing it. But in the end, it was the story that felt true to the characters.
That's interesting. I've always wondered where that came from. It is a difficult subject, and sometimes you just can't get away from those subjects when they keep on coming to you. So you have to write about them as a writer. Um, our next author is Cheryl Wright, and her byline is so fascinating: author, pilot, and engineer. She's right-brained and left-brained, and doing all kinds of fun things in her life. Cheryl started her career in the military as a photographer while she trained to be an aircraft instrument electrical tech. She would go on to receive an electrical engineering degree before earning her wings. As a pilot, she's flown everything from commuter jets, helicopters, seaplanes, including working on a fire patrol spotter, air ambulance captain, and a line pilot for Canadian Airlines. She must love to fly. After suffering a medical misfortune, Cheryl retired her wings and picked up her pen. Today, her works of fiction include the award-winning Contrary Warrior series and 5 romances with Bella Books, including the just-released Illusion Lake romances. She is currently working on something extraordinary, the lessons learned in the time between this life and the next, delivering during her near-death experience. Her working title is Purpose Like Air. Wow. You not only do you write about life on the edge, Cheryl, you live your life on the edge. It sounds like. So could you explain how some of that exciting background of yours has faded into some of your stories?
Yeah, definitely most of my books have some sort of flying thing going on or some tragedy invoked after it. I have one character that a lot of readers have told me they really loved, Georgie, in my first 2 books, and she was a U.S. Air Force officer and a pilot who was shot down, and she suffers from PTSD and traumatic brain injury. And that was sort of the catalyst to build a very complicated story around intergenerational family trauma and life as it sort of really is. I'm not capable of writing a simple romance. I have tried, but complicated life just seems to sift in from everywhere. And I've resolved that that's what I am. So that's what I can do. And learning to write, that was a big challenge for me. And learning not that I couldn't be a pilot anymore was shocking. But life changes and you adapt. And, here I am living in suburban Toronto with my wife and 2 dogs and 1,400 cats somewhere. And it's different and I'm happy. So life is really about adapting and finding hope. And Jay's the pro, she could explain it better. But I think that's really what we all try to deliver when in our stories is that there's hope no matter what's going on. Jay's shaking her head, so I think I did okay. Thanks.
You did great.